This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Eric Dawson Show. I don't know why my audio didn't play, but welcome. Anyway, the topic is, and I expect a few calls probably later on today, but the topic today is, let me see if I can get to a better angle. Here we go. There we go. Make me larger. The topic today is, it's time to tear down and rebuild. Now, it's interesting that for the better part of the last
This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down.
I'm sorry.
Down, down, down.
I can't. Oh, there we go. You know what, Farrakhan, brother, I love
That's
you.
why I was calling so fast.
Because I can't hear the music on this end. I don't know what I did,
Oh,
but I can't hear.
whenever you did, when you said "let me change the angle,"
Yeah.
it just popped in.
It just
and
popped
it was
in?
Like, nothing you said was heard. It was all music.
Ah, all right. I'm sorry. So,
Okay.
thank you very much, brother. So, I apologize for technical difficulties. Still working on an intern. Actually, I have one, but he's working on another project for me. Anyway, we've spent the better part of this show over the last couple years talking about America, being honest about America, because you can't really move forward until you are honest about America. And as a result, we've had people come and go from the show. They've been offended, both co-hosts as well as viewers and listeners. But we've been steadfast in terms of talking about how abusive America has always been to foundational Black Americans, how abusive America has been in general in obtaining and fighting for its white supremacy. Right? So that's who America is. Then we talk about who foundational Black Americans are. And we talk about it constantly as us being seen, among other groups, but us in particular, being seen as a commodity to the wealth and power of that institution that we say has brutalized us. Right? So that's the framework. And trying to work within the confines, and I know Farrakhan's going to call, but trying to, and what I mean, but I'll explain it. Trying to work within the confines of what they have already built doesn't work. Has to be torn down and rebuilt, right? You can't put a Band-Aid on it anymore. You can't put salve on it anymore. Well, you never could, but that's what they kept trying to do. We'll just rub this on and make it feel better. Or if you guys remember My Greek Wedding, spray some Windex on it and all of a sudden things will be better for you. That's not what's required, right? What's required is radical change. Radical change. So we know who the abuser is. We know who the abused are. And what we need is radical change. We need to change people, places, and things. Can we all agree to that? I mean, finally, can we just surmise it to that? Here we have an abuser. We have the abused. In order to rectify the situation, well, there are a couple other things. But the first thing we need to do is change people, places, things. Now, in changing people, places, and things, it means tearing it down. That's the thing we have to change. That's the thing we have to change. The people who are a part of it, right, they have to change too. Right? So the places, we can have debate about that. There's some people who say we should get on a boat and go somewhere. I don't know where. This is my country. I am foundational to this country. I'm a Black American. I'm not an African American. I'm a Black American. So I'm not getting on a plane or a boat or anywhere, right? I want to change and fix it here. I want to break it down, tear it down, and rebuild it here to work for me and to work for my family and to work for my people. So we know who the abuser is. We know who the abused is. And the methodology, change people, places, and things. So now what we see happening across not only the country, but across the world are people are marching. People are protesting. The question is, are they focused? Focused on changing people, places, and things? Or are they simply just marching and protesting, right? Like I said last week, for justice for Mr. Floyd. If they're just marching and protesting for justice for Mr. Floyd, I'm afraid they missed the boat. It is justice. It is economic power. It is political power for all of us. It is saying that we need to change people, places, and things. It is saying we have finally had enough. That we understand who the abuser is, and we don't want any more. We don't want any platitudes. We don't want any flowers. We don't want any chocolate candy. We don't want any I'm sorry cards. We don't want any balloons that say I love you. We don't want any of that anymore. None of it. Because that's what all of it has been for all of these decades, centuries, should I say. It has been, I'll kick you in your back and I'll send you some flowers. I'll knee you in your neck and then I'll tell you I love you. The protest, what's going on, has to be centered around, I believe, centered around saying we, not Mr. Floyd, but we, collectively, me, Eric Dawson, I've had enough. I'm ready to leave. Call or go.
The boat has sailed. You're right. You missed the boat, brother. The boat has sailed. You missed it. And again, it not only has the boat sailed, but the boat was hijacked. The pirates came and took the boat from us.
Isn't it crazy? They don't see it though,
Right.
Farrakhan.
No, they don't see it. You know, it's so far. Like I looked at there was like I guess an article, so a lot of people were putting up sharing it. It was like, what's the governor, Phil Murphy, and some protesters, and they're all walking behind like the big sign. And I noticed the most important things for me that was not on the sign was equality. Right? It was justice and ending racism and something else on the big sign. And I'm like, well, until you have equality, right, you can't end systemic racism. You're never going to end racism, right? Like, people are always going to be indifferent to each other. So racism will always be. But it's the systemic racism that we're trying to stop. That systemized, organized, institutionalized racism that we need to stop. But we won't stop that until we have equality in our society. Until black folks are looked at the same way, right? Until we have what they have. And then people will say, well, okay, now I got to respect him some. He's got what I got. But as long as we don't, there's always going to be people who feel we're lesser, and there's always going to be people who don't want us to have what they have.
Right.
So the racism and the system will uphold, right? And then, I laugh when they say, well, look at all the people around the world. And I say, well, okay, let's look at the countries that they're in. The majority of the people protesting around the world are in countries that were the worst slave trading countries ever, right? They are the reason we have this form of racism and inequality. You live in those countries. When you live in Spain, when you live in France, when you live in England, when you live, right? And then if you look at the blacks in their countries, they ain't doing no better. So that's how you know it's just a photo op. Right?
It's more flowers. Like I said, Farrakhan, it's more flowers than candy, right? They realize, you know, if you've ever known an abuser, right? An abuser keeps pushing the limit to see how much shit, like how much shit they can kick out of the abused, right? And then just as the abused is about to walk out the door, the abuser has to ante up and say, oh man, all right, you know what? I'm gonna buy her some, I got her roses last time. I'm gonna get her some lilies or some gardenias or something else, right? Keep her here. And so I think we are now, is they're looking, they said, you know what? They may actually, even though they're not organized, they may just be so enraged that they're just gonna burn this shit down. And we gotta stop them. And then they started saying, okay, what do we do? Oh, send them this card in the form of our charlatan. Send them these flowers in the form of some other person. Send them some candy in the form of some other person or something, right? And that's what they've been. And you know what, Farrakhan? We've been gullible enough to believe that they care again. Because I've had conversations all weekend where black folks said, well, they're doing this. See, and it's the abused, right? Who says, well, he loves me because he said I'm sorry. And I'm saying, no, do you understand like that your arm is still in a sling, right? And now you got your foot in a cast, and you got a black eye, and you got a bloody nose, and you got a fat lip. And that's where we are.
That's exactly where we are. And the worst part about, like, I've been listening to a lot of people say, well, look, now they're changing these chokehold rules. First off, it wasn't a chokehold that killed Mr. Floyd, if you want to say that. I don't even know how chokeholds came back in the conversation again. But even the fact that they didn't, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. What does it mean to a police officer who no longer can grab you? Who can no longer do anything? You think police officers are going to grab people's arms? No, that just means there'll be more shootings and more tasings. That's all that comes from saying you can't chokehold the person anymore. For a police officer, and you can ask any cop, if I can't subdue you by grabbing you from the easiest part of your body, right, the upper neck, and pulling you to the ground and getting you to the ground, how else is he going to do it?
Right.
How else do you get a resisting person to stop? So now you're left with only two choices. Be like Uncle Joe said and shoot him. Right now, how ridiculous is that, right? Or just going up tased. I haven't seen the results of, like, and believe me, the more people get tased, the more you're going to see black people get tased disproportionately, right? And then you'll see that for some reason black people die from getting tased, right? Because I'm sure shooting people with electricity has to spark some kind of heart attack if you have other issues, right? Those underlying issues. So again, we as black people, we're so frustrated and also truthfully uneducated to what we need. Yeah. And most black America doesn't know what we need, right? We just know something wrong.
We know we need relief, right? You know you got a headache and you don't know exactly how to get rid of it, but you know you don't want it anymore.
Right. You don't know if it's Tylenol or aspirin.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So go ahead, Vince. I hear you.
Well, what you know is that you're being mistreated, or as they used to say, or as they say in the Negro spirituals, you know that I've been buked and I've been scorned, but you don't know why. And that's the whole...
No, why?
Oh, no.
You know why, right? Don't you think?
No. A lot of people to this day still do not know why the injustices are occurring against black people.
And you know what? He's 100% right, Farrakhan. I was reading some articles.
You know what? When he said that, I think he's right.
Yeah.
You've got to be right.
Yeah, I was reading some articles this weekend, man. There are a lot of people who don't. They were saying that books are flying off the shelf right now in Barnes & Noble. They're saying that Amazon, the number 1 books that are being purchased right now have to do with black history, America's relationship with black American slavery. That people are buying these books, and I agree that people don't know. So remember, let me finish this.
Listen to what you just said. No, I don't mean to throw you off, but listen to what you just said. Books are flying off the shelves right now for black people to figure out what the hell is going on.
No. I don't know. No.
People.
Wait. Wait, I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I don't want to talk over, right? It's everybody buying these books. So remember last week I was talking about an awareness campaign, right? So this is the awareness, right? So there are people who are like, holy shit. And I really believe this, Farrakhan. I really believe, and this is why I say we got to attack it at the school level. Because people grow up indoctrinated in a culture, intentionally indoctrinated based on teachings, right? From kindergarten to first grade, or say preschool, kindergarten, first grade, all the way through secondary education, or miseducation, if we want to call it that. And so now you have adults, 30, 40 years old, and we could argue and shake our fingers and say, you should have known. But if we are to agree that this system This corporation of white supremacy is so brilliant at how they manipulate a narrative, that they're so brilliant in how they brainwash people. If we acknowledge that, then we have to say to some extent, there are people out here, though they should know, though they should be intellectually curious, that you have these forces, these real forces working at odds with people freeing themselves.
You're right. That's what I said last week when we were talking about the slavery and teaching it. And I told you, in those schools that I was in, they taught slavery. They taught slavery clearly. But I never once heard slavery was wrong. I heard what they did, what happened, who started this and all of that, where it came from. But never once did I ever have a white teacher stand in front of a class of plenty of white kids ever say it was wrong. That was never part of the discussion. So that brainwashing that you're talking about, yeah, they talked about slavery. All white kids learned about it. Yes, they just learned that they did it. They never learned, this was wrong. Like, that was never, I swear to you, I have no recollection of hearing a teacher say.
And so now...
If I can add to what you're saying, Farrakhan, especially in the predominantly white schools, they taught slavery, but they taught it as if it was just,
Right, that's what he's saying.
People taking care of blacks.
Right.
They sugarcoated the violence. They sugarcoated the carnage.
Right, but how do we move forward? That's so right. So we know what they did. We know what they're still doing. And I'm saying, and so what I'm saying, guys, is this. To all of you who are listening to the show, all of you who are watching the show, if we understand that our circumstances in part, or maybe in whole, is the result of this system that continues to miseducate the masses, then why do we continue? Now, I know we're not driving our kids now because of the schools being closed, but but they're still getting these online lessons. Why are we allowing them to continue to pump this miseducation into our children? So wait a minute. So here's what we have now. I want you to understand this. We're sitting oohing and eyeing about all of the protests that are going on, about this level of consciousness in our country, right? And in the world around how America has kicked black folks in the ass for 400 plus years, right? Meanwhile, while we're doing that, we're still welcoming the miseducation from these institutions into our homes now and pumped into the brains of our children. What the hell are we doing?
If I could quote Malcolm X, only a fool will let his enemies teach his children.
So how do we tell me how you're reconciling this now? How are you reconciling, sobbing for George Floyd, right? Sobbing for his family, saying prayers going up for them, but you ain't praying for your own goddamn kids. You're not fighting for your own kids to ensure that they're being properly educated and that the ones to the left and right of them in the classroom are being properly educated too. What are we doing? So Farrakhan, I agree with you, man. We missed the boat. It's gone.
Well, it's not too late. And let's say, to answer that question, and I know that there are a lot of politicians listening to this show right now, so they could get a whole lot of other points and then present it as their original idea. One thing we need to do to answer that question so that we can now ensure our children, not only black but white, let us now change one part of history. Let us now start teaching children American history, not American white history, and then on the 28 days, the shortest month of the year, we teach them black history. No, let's teach them the full American history, the contributions of both.
Right, but where does that start? So listen, so we can have the conversation here on the show, but this is what I'm saying to all of the people who are watching and listening. You just elected board members. Why did you elect them? To do what? To do what? So what I'm saying to you is this. Do you not believe? Look, I was listening to the news this morning, and they were saying exactly what we say on the show. That this idea of taking a police officer who grew up in this culture, who grew up with this miseducation, who then became a police officer, to now try to re-engineer their thinking. You're not going to be able to do it, which is why in Minneapolis, they're saying we wanted to span the whole thing. Because you can't go in there. It's all rotten. We talked about this. When I asked the question, I said, you show me good cops. If good cops, what we call good cops, know the bad cops, but they're not saying anything, then are they good cops? So in Minneapolis, they're saying, you know what? Eric, we agree with you. We want to tear the whole thing down. And we want to start from scratch in terms of how we rebuild. And I'm saying you can't go into any police department and decide that, oh, we're going to institute some new training methods, or we're going to have sensitivity classes, or that's bullshit. They have been indoctrinated for 30 years of their lives in terms of who they believe they are and who they believe you are. And every ounce of their being is executing on what that knowledge is. So until you deal with it at the root, so even the next classes that are coming in, they have also been contaminated. They are also diseased. So the cure is to burn all of the effing books in the schools. All of them. They have done it all. Every single one of those books can be attributed to this. Now, if you don't have board members, if you don't have mayors, if you don't have congressmen, senators fighting to get those books out of the classroom, then they're not fighting for you. Fact.
Is it
Fact.
the books or is it the actual teaching? It's the actual curriculum.
Yes.
That's what I mean. That's what I think. I think that, you know how you always say two people can read a book and get completely different, understandings from the book.
No, Farrakhan, wait a minute. But what I'm talking about, no, you don't get, listen. And I posted this picture 3 years ago and had this conversation with you all 3 years ago and told you when I used to be an art director at the largest educational publisher in the entire world, I would sit in board meetings and argue with them because they would want to put a black kid and then put the word angry next to him, and then have a white kid and put the word successful next to them. Have a black kid and put sad next to them. Have a white kid and put happy next to them. And they didn't think there was anything wrong with that. And they're still doing it. And so now when your little baby picks up this book that you think is innocent, and what they see is somebody who looks like them, sad and angry all the goddamn time, and then you wonder why they behave the way they do. I'm saying you're not fighting, and there's no two ways to look at that content.
No, there isn't. And look at the actual psychological damage of that book. There was a teacher who got her doctorates in race relations and education in the 70s, and she did this on 60 Minutes. She took the same picture, colored one brown, left the other one white, took it to black and white kids, and put words like, okay, point out which one is clean, which one is dirty,
Right.
which one is angry, which one is sad,
Right.
which one is good, and which one is bad. 97% chose the one that was colored brown as all the negatives.
So I want to quickly, right? So here are the examples that we're giving you. You see what's happening in the street. You see how they treat us. We talk about it, right? We're videotaping it now. But I'm telling you, the next officer is being trained right now in kindergarten on how to see you or how to see your great-grandchildren. Yeah, that's what's happening right now. Right now. And if you're not, and so if we're not willing to go and literally reach into those schools, into those classrooms, and yank out all of that material, then why are we doing this?
Well, what I would say is, we know Usually it's what is it? Around October or so. There's like the teachers convention. It's usually like in Atlantic City for here in New Jersey, where they have all the Scholastic and all the brands come, and they go down to AC and they do all the I guess promoting of their latest books and materials for the schools to get. I think everybody right now, like if you can hear this, tell your Board of Education members, right? Your board members that, hey, it's time y'all go down there and pick some new books. Y'all pick better material. Because they're going down there, right? They go down there every year to Atlantic City, right? And that's like usually when they have like the 2 days where the teachers are out of school and the kids are home for no apparent reason, right? Every year. It's usually around, like I said, October or early November. When they go down there, this time, make them do something. Make them get more than just get the perks that they get when they go down there. Because they get all those perks. So make sure they do more.
Farrakhan, here's the flaw in what they do that. Because the average board member has, you will find that only 3 out of 10 has experience in childhood development, early childhood education, or education in general. So when they send these people down to these conventions and they get them all drunk, all they do is go before these white salespeople and enjoy all the perks of food and drinks, and they just buy the books without even checking the content. That's why we get stuck with it.
Right? They get the guy that gives them the most swag bag and gives them the most drink. That's the guy that goes.
So come ticket to the casino.
Exactly. So that's the as we send them down there this time, what I'm saying is let's hold them accountable. Like you need to be coming back with something worth a thing, right? Not the same old.
See, this is where I have to agree with Eric. So let's note this in history. Let us burn down the school board, elect some people in there with some understanding of childhood development and education. Eliminate the entire butt-kissing, cronyism, multiple $million budget hogging SOBs, and get somebody in there that know what the heck they're doing in terms of content, dealing with race, equality.
Right. So you can do all of that, but at the end of the day, and then I want to answer Dre Sandrod's question. He asked me a question in thread. But you can do all that at the end of the day, and I'll tell you this because my dad was the president of the North Board of Education for several years, right? My dad also worked for several years as the chief of staff for Kenneth Allen Gibson when he was mayor of the city of Newark. So I have a very clear understanding of how all of it works. And so if you have politics, even if you had the most qualified in terms of having an educator's background, person sitting on the Board of Education or as president of the Board of Education or as a superintendent of whatever position, if they are tied politically, they are following out the ideology of whoever those people are who have aided them in getting those positions. So,
correct.
Right? And so it doesn't matter, right? You gotta look at this political thing. And every politician that you elect, they have to agree to fight for political and economic power. Because then if they're doing that, all of these things trickle down, right? Because part of economic power is education, right? Part of political power is freedom and financial abilities. Right? All these things are intertwined. Once you can agree to economic and political power. Now, Dre Sandrod asked me, he said, Eric, would you agree that a major part of the problem is the media's portrayal of urban minorities? Look. So I think that what the problem, Sandrod, is our reliance on the media. See, the media is going to do what the media is going to do, right? We got to stop asking them to do something other than what we've already agreed they're going to do, which is cape for the corporations that pay their money. That's what they're gonna do. So once we understand that, then what are our alternatives? So for me, I say, hey, look, the alternative for me is to create my own, to engage you guys directly and call out the bullshit that's happening there. And so if we would be less focused now on what we already know the media is going to do, right? And become more focused on building our own, right? Sharing information that is trustworthy and reliable and accurate, then the media, that'll deal with itself. Look, stop watching. And guess what'll happen? They'll go out of business because they'll lose revenue through advertising dollars, right? So the real problem is us, that we keep feeding the beast that's killing us. Stop it. Turn them off. If we look and see that these media sources are not representing us, why do we keep accepting it? The same thing with the schools. We know that they're miseducating our kids, but we keep driving them there. We know the water is dirty and contaminated, but we keep on drinking.
Lazy, Eric. It's called lazy. If you want to know why people keep doing it, it's because they have made it easy, which makes us lazy. See, like, perfect example. I had closed my Facebook account, and I didn't have that open for a while. And then I said, you know what, with all this COVID-19, when it first started, I was like, you want to get information constant and fast. So, and nothing spreads faster than Facebook anymore. I don't care. News, if it happens in this world, it will be on Facebook faster than you will see it on television, radio, anything. So I had to go back to it. It becomes easy. Right now, I'm still about to cut it off again because we seem to be over COVID-19 to some degree. Right, the discussion is, I mean, I know it's still here, but we're not being affected that way, so I don't really need it anymore for information. But what happens is the way the media has set it up is everything is integrated, right? And they put so much information into certain things, you have to get it from these people. Right, you're trying to seek your own information is a lot harder, right? It's why people, if you ever look on Facebook, right, they share articles that are 2 years old because it sounds like from the headline, it's today, right? Like somebody did that today, right? They shared an article about a police officer that was killed in 2017, right? But it made it look like it was done by the rioters today. Right. So, but they don't read, right? So, because again, we're lazy, right? So they don't check the information. They don't even put up, when they put up, like sometimes I'll put up a post that I didn't read, but I'll say I didn't read it.
Right.
So that if you read it and it's wrong or it's not what the headline says, you'll know. But we're so lazy, people just want to sound like they're informed and look like they're informed and share shit.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
One of the biggest things that we have found, in fact, this weekend, I've been talking to a lot of white people, because they want to ask the uncomfortable questions about race. So one guy put up a post about, that cop being killed in a riot, and see, people rely on media. They don't do the research to find out the validity, and people can put that and take it out of context. And that's exactly what they've done.
Right.
And hold on, 10 seconds. They've done that in my election.
Right, but how do we get beyond it? So again, I don't want to complain about what they do. We know they do it. So if all we're going to do on this show is talk about what they do and not talk about how to deal with it, then we're not giving people anything. So we know what they do.
Well, here is how we deal with it. First of all, let's look at this, and I'll agree with the concept. If we are going to pose a problem, we also need to pose a solution. So the problem is the simple fact that we are dealing with a lot of people who rely so heavily on this social media. They get the fake news and believe it to be true.
So that's what they do.
Need to do. Well,
yep.
The
what do we
solution
do?
is to start informing them what you're doing right now of what is true, and backing it up with sources of reference. The only thing that can actually conquer darkness is light. The truth is the light.
So.
Go ahead.
No. So it comes down to, for me, guys, you have to do something. So you quoted Malcolm earlier, and it didn't play on the audio this morning, or maybe it did and I just didn't hear it, where he says, if what we're fighting for, if what we want is freedom, right? If that's what people are fighting for, so we say equality, equitability, whatever it is, right? So we want to be freed from our current bondage of inequity, inequality, right? Injustice. We want to be freed from all of that. But he says, quote, nobody's going to give it to you. If you want it, what you gotta do? Gotta fight for it. And if you're not willing to fight for it, he said, you don't deserve it. So that's where I am now. The people who want to fight, get up and let's start fighting. The other people.
But now here's the thing, though, Eric. You don't want to fight for it in the manner in which he did.
Well,
See, that's
yeah,
the thing.
right.
You're using the quote, right? But you don't actually want to do
No,
what
no,
he
you're
wanted
right.
to do.
Right. So what I'll repeat it again, which is what I said last week. I don't believe that you go hunting down people. I believe that what happens is because this institution is not going to give it to you, as you start to free yourself, much like in any other abusive relationship. And this is why I tie it into abusive relationships. If you've ever known a woman who tried to leave an abusive relationship, it gets more abusive. It gets more abusive. And she has to start defending herself. You'll hear about how they go get a gun permit, how they start to take taekwondo lessons, how they start to prepare themselves for the attack that is going to come when they ultimately leave. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm not saying that you go and you look for the fight. I'm saying be prepared when it comes.
And I'm saying that he was saying it's time to fight. He wasn't waiting for it to come. See, there you go. If you wait for it to come, you could wait forever, because the abuser knows how to go gentle at times and go hard at times. So it becomes like that fishing thing. When people fishing, you got to give them a little leeway and then you wheel them back in. That's what they're doing, right? So what he was saying was, guess what? Forget all of that. Let's just go fight. So you can't have it both ways. He said, let's go fight, right? That was the beginning of the rift with him and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He wanted to fight. He wanted to go and do something specific. He wasn't trying to wait anymore. And so when we use his quotes and then we misuse them by trying to reinterpret them.
I'm not. Be clear.
That is reinterpreting.
No. I'm not
saying to wait. Saying to wait is reinterpreting Malcolm X.
No.
He was not saying to wait.
I'm not. No, I didn't say he said wait. I said what I believe. So I believe.
Right. But you can't quote him, but you're making your belief off of this quote.
Oh, no doubt. So
give him the opportunity to clarify his thought.
Right. So what I am doing is, that's absolutely correct. So I read this. I understand where he stood. I'm saying I agree with the premise that one, nobody's going to give you freedom. I agree with that. I can agree with that without agreeing with the fact that we need to go hunt people down. I could also agree with the fact that you need to fight for it. But I can tell you what I believe fighting is for me. I can also tell you that when he says nobody's going to give it to you, you have to take it. I can agree with that without wholesale agreeing to a methodology of getting to it. Right, I could believe if somebody, but it's not misinterpreted. No, it's not misinterpreted. No, Farrakhan, stop, Farrakhan, please.
Well, Farrakhan, let him.
Right, it's not misinterpreting it. I'm telling you exactly what he said. Misinterpreting it is telling you something else that he said. I'm telling you exactly what he said. I'm then telling you.
I said reinterpreting it. You're making it sound like there is another way to do his statement. His statement was very clear. It is time to fight. He didn't say anything else. He did not say wait. He did not say there were gentle and peaceful ways of fighting. He said fight, and it was going to be violent. And he said to do it now. And to use his quote and then say anything else is reinterpreting it.
Okay.
If
So
you tell
if
me
we're going to
something and I change it around a little bit, and then after I repeat it, that's reinterpreting, and
Yeah.
that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
Malcolm
we have.
X
I
wanted
want to move.
fight.
We have.
No, I think
listen,
what
yeah.
Eric is actually
Well, I don't
doing
want to
is
belabor. I
taking-
don't look. I don't want to belabor it. I don't need you to tell him what I did. I disagree with you. We can move on.
Okay.
Right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
We have to, guys, and then we can disagree, right? But let's find the things, the areas that we can agree on, and let's move forward and push forward on those things, right? So, can we agree? Can we agree on finally agree on tearing this thing down? Because that's what some of the people look like they wanted to do, that they want to tear it down. Now, I saw a couple of my friends that I used to, travel in the political space with, and they were out at marches and rallies or protests or whatever you want to call them, and they were FaceTiming or Facebook Living it or whatever. And I gotta tell you, I've disconnected from a lot of them because they're all con artists, or most of them. And so I've literally just disconnected myself from them. And it was shameful sitting there watching because it's the same playbook, right? So you could see that they're trying to figure out how to get a certain number of views on a Facebook Live to try to show whoever the nominee is for these different elections that are coming up so that they could leverage that to work on the election. So they're really not about the community. It's crazy to see. It is crazy. And guys, here's where I say that we, right, the whatever we want to call, we call them the informed class, the woke people, whatever you want to call them, where we have to look and recognize those people very quickly, and we have to remove them because they're dangerous. But I did see these protests, and I saw a lot of, and then they legitimize it by showing the white people. Did you guys know? Are you guys noticing that? Like the protests carries legitimacy because it is multiracial. It's diverse. As though the message wouldn't be legitimate if it was just black folk angry and upset at just having the shit kicked out of them every day.
Well, the actual the psychological part that I got in the media was this. They showed the peaceful protest as a great deal of white people standing in with their signs. They showed the rioting and of every picture of a black person running in there, tearing up a store and looting.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that too. But like I said to Dre Sanrod, it's our job to shut the media down, and you shut the media down by shutting off your television. If they're not getting the viewership, they won't get the sponsorship. They don't get the sponsorship, they don't get the dollars. They don't get the dollars, they go out of business. It's that easy. It's that easy. It's like boycotting anything else. Say, look, you're not working in my interest. You're working contrary to my interest. I can't watch you anymore. We have to be willing to do that.
Of course.
And then what do you... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Where do you get it from? Right? I'm not trying to, debate it, but, where do you get it from? Where do people learn that they're out there trying to make a change if you turn off the TV that's only going to give it to you a certain way?
Well, it's not the fact of turning off the TV. It's the simple fact of this. The media, just like all businesses, they're based upon revenue or profit. So the media gets its revenue and profit by showing things that people are interested in seeing, which therefore drives up their advertisement dollars. So if people are now upset with this media circuit and they stop watching it, then their numbers go down. Their numbers go down, then the advertisers leave them. So he's basically saying boycott, starve them until they actually start putting black people in the proper perspective and content light.
Yeah.
If you look at the Academy Awards, how many black people got Oscars for being doctors, scientists, or saving the world or humanity in general? It's the media's portrayal of black people, what they will reward you for doing.
Hey guys, there's a headline, and this came from MSNBC. It says 12,000 protesters, 0 incidents. Newark, New Jersey, a model city in peaceful protests. Thoughts?
Well, you see what I put on my Facebook when I shared. I didn't even read it yet, right? I just shared it and put Raz for president. That's all.
So,
I mean, some people understood what I really meant by that, but you know, listen. Look, I don't know if there were really 12,000 people walking down the street in North protesting.
Well,
What I saw didn't look like that, but
whatever the number was.
I mean, it was what I do respect, right? And you have to respect that for it to be a major city, to be a large city, they did keep the rioting, the wildness down. They kept it peaceful. Now, however, they figured out how to do that, how to work with the protest leaders, how to work with their police department, and everybody keep it from escalating. As it was, people were trying. There were people trying to escalate. So you got to give them kudos for that, right? You got to give them some props for that, because other cities couldn't do it.
Right. So
Right,
here's what I'll say.
Well, it's the same way Camden kept their rioting, no rioting, just protesting, was the simple fact that you brought the police into the protest. You brought the people with badges into the protest. So nobody's going to go and start something when there's a cop standing right next to them waiting to arrest them.
Are you saying that they used that old trickology?
Yes.
Is that what they did? I'm just asking.
No, look, come on. Let's talk about it. I mean, if you're going to actually put together a protest and you know that there are some agitators who are going to come in, then you eliminate that chance of those agitators giving your protest a black eye by bringing in the cops.
So are you saying that in New Jersey, the police, because of the municipalities from previous experience, have figured out how to bamboozle and hoodwink people when they start rising up?
No. What I'm saying is that because of experience and the rioting, listen to me, because I do not want to be actually the words of my mouth taken out of context. What I'm saying is that they have learned to be smarter in dealing with it. So to keep the people from looting, breaking up, and destroying, you put police in your protests in uniform, marching alongside of them, because no crook in his right mind is going to commit a crime when a cop is looking at him.
So they figured out how to bamboozle and hoodwink those that riot and protest by putting the police in there with them and saying, "Oh, we're all together."
Right.
No.
They
They figured out how to keep their violence.
But coming from my angle,
That's how I see it
see a
too,
bunch of
Farrakhan.
people that were at a rage point, and they figured out that if we slide in there while they're at this rage, we can follow it, we can clear it, and keep it down. And that's there you go.
Right.
That's exactly what they did.
So what do you guys think about Mitt Romney walking along with the protesters? We're talking about the police walking with him. It says Mitt Romney joins protests supporting Black Lives. Well, wait a minute. Before we get to that.
Wasn't he the governor of Massachusetts? Right? He was the governor of Massachusetts, right?
Right.
New Hampshire.
Yeah, New Hampshire.
No, Mitt Romney was out.
No, Massachusetts.
No,
New Massachusetts. Massachusetts. He also was in Massachusetts, where they had like their universal health care. That was Massachusetts, and he was governor of Massachusetts, which means he was governor over there for Boston. And that can't be one of the most racist and biased places in the world. Right? So that's what I think of.
So, but this is
Romney
again.
has done nothing for black people.
So for me,
That's what I
so
think.
there's no difference. So when I see these police, same deal, right? Same deal. The police who lean on their union to pressure through politics to remove these records of misconduct, right? And then they want to walk with you. So they want to they want to make sure that records of misconduct are removed. But then they want to walk with you. Mitt Romney did nothing for black folks. And now for political gain, for his own political, and we allow, and see, here's the problem with it for me, that we allow it. Why do we allow it? See, let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. What do you think would happen if a Ku Klux Klansman in full regalia started to march along with the Black Lives Matter people? What would happen?
Hell would freeze over.
No. They would reject.
No, that's not true. I'm not being funny. Did you see what happened? It was actually old, but they showed it. Somebody showed, and I shared it. Where Black Lives Matters was invited to come up on the stage at the pro-Trump rally, right? And it was harmony in the end. Right, they were still going against him and yelling at him and all of that, but in the end, there was harmony. See, if you do it the right way, you can calm anything. You can make any situation go the way you want. It's just how they do it.
Well, to answer the question on Mitt Romney is basically using what's called Machiavellian techniques. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Mitt Romney, the Republican, has stood up against Trump on numerous occasions and accounts. So Trump has now decided to make black people his enemy. Well, he's already done that. What he actually did is publicly announce it and made his direction clear. Mitt Romney has stood up against Trump. Trump is now both enemies. So he's saying, well, if Trump is my enemy and Trump is the enemy of Black Lives Matter and people who are protesting about inequality, race, and injustice, then they are now my friend. So that's relatively simple. Is it putting a spin or putting another light on Mitt Romney? Well, I'm not going to say. I would say yes, it is, but also look at the simple fact that Mitt Romney was the first Republican to stand up against Trump during the inclusion. He was the first to say that he would vote against him in the impeachment and removal
Right, but
process.
here's the challenge for me. Listen to what you're saying. See, it was all what Mitt Romney was doing against Trump, not what Mitt Romney was doing for black people. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
So this is where this
I'll give you another one. When he ran against Obama and they wanted to turn it negative, Mitt Romney was the first one that says, no, I will not say that about Obama. I will not say that about any senator, any politician, any of the negative.
That wasn't Mitt Romney. That was the guy that died.
That was John McCain. That was John McCain.
That's
actually
McCain.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. So my point to you is this. We need people, and I agree with Charlemagne. Charlemagne said to Biden, and I think it not only should it apply to Biden, but it should apply to any politician who is courting the black vote. What are you going to do specifically for me? Nope, I don't want to hear about Donald Trump. Nope, I don't want to hear about. I want to know specifically what you're going to do about me. And if they don't have an answer, then you ought not vote for them. Period. They don't have an answer. Listen, I was looking at
Hey, Eric.
Yep.
Don't you think the bigger part of that is being able to tell them what you want to do?
Well, but here's
Charlemagne can ask. I gotta agree with that one. I can't like asking a white guy, what are you going to do to help?
I don't disagree. On the surface, I don't disagree with that. But we have to go back to. But we have to go back to what we talked about, right, and keep it in context. We all agreed earlier, about a half an hour ago, that we don't know. But all we know is we got a headache. We don't know whether Tylenol, Bayer, Excedrin. All we know is we have a headache. So for
white America, though, right? According to white America,
Well, I don't. No.
But
Because what
the
you
whole
do
thing
know.
is-
Listen.
because you're now taking my quote out of context. When I said that they do not know, I was referring to white America not knowing. What I said, what now, if you ask, and in fact they've asked a great deal of African Americans, and what could make this actually better, a lot of them have a great deal, a huge list of things that they need to address and demand. Like we don't freaking know. You mean to tell me I've been getting my behind kicked in an abusive relationship, and I don't know that I don't want my behind to stop being kicked? No. It's the abuser who doesn't know how to stop that. The person being abused, no.
Stop yelling. Right. So
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So
I gotta say, to that, and I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that on a whole, Black America has an agenda, right? Just as you haven't decided on a leader to present the agenda, right? We haven't created a panel that we can say, well, this panel has come up with this agenda from all the four corners of this country of what Black people did, right? And we don't have a leader that says it. I think it's hard for me to say that, just because Black people start yelling out, right? Which is what it is to be, right? You ask Cornell West one thing, he's going to tell you, a whole his list. You ask Jesse Jackson, he's going to tell you his list. You ask Minister Farrakhan, he's going to tell you his list. You ask Mallory, she's going to tell you her list. That is not going to work, right? You're going to have to come up, let's just say, with a 10-point system. America must change these things immediately, right? And then to any politician who doesn't want to sign on to that, right? And I think Erica said it before the show, we don't rock, right? It's got to go like that. There you go. And part of us is we're going to be unilateral, or in one specific subject of actual merit and matter to increase the quality of life and secure the future of our children. Let us base it upon one particular thing: the elimination and eradication of systematic racism. Because a majority of our issues have to deal with that concept. Can I pause you right there? You gotta go ahead. You cannot eliminate racism. You have to create equality. We are missing what I come from.
I agree with that. I agree.
Well, hold it. If we're going, go ahead. I'm sorry. Racism. It was freedom, justice, and equality. That's okay. Freedom, justice, and equality. Racism is just a symptom of lack of those things. Okay, I don't have to worry about whether you are racist or not. If I have equality, I got equality. If I got proper justice, I got proper justice. I got freedom. You're real. If I could, go ahead. If I could, the biggest problem that we have is getting equality. Or getting our equality, or them leveling the playing field, is the simple fact of the insecurity that they have in their racism that is keeping them to oppress us. So if we can actually legislate, or in that process, we can therefore have a level of equality or level playing field.
Well, but you're not going to. But here's the deal. Vincent.
We are legislating feelings right now.
Right.
We have hate law.
Vincent. So you're not gonna.
You're not legislating the feeling of hate. You're legislating the action of doing hate.
That's absolutely correct. And that's what I was going to say. So you're not gonna eradicate how a person feels, right?
No.
You're not gonna do that, right? So they're gonna still be racist. It is their action that you might curtail,
be able to
based
curtail
on
and legislate against. Correct. Right. So let's not say we need to stop racism.
We just need to punish them when they do it.
Equality in the punishment.
Right.
You need to make sure that when they do that act, they get punished for it. In changing that language, we are still saying the same thing.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
Okay.
No, we're not.
No,
we're not. Wait, Vincent, stop! Please, Vincent.
Vincent. Of the bill is not the same.
Vincent, no,
Yes?
we're not saying the same thing. It's not the same thing. One is trying to change a person's feeling. The other one is dealing with how a person acted on those feelings. So I don't care how you feel about me. I don't care about that. I don't care how you feel about me. None of us should. I don't care. You don't want to. You want to hate me? You go ahead and hate me. But now, when you step outside the boundaries of the law, then I want equality. I want you to be treated the same way anybody else would be.
Okay, gentlemen. Then for the sake of you, right? Hey, hold on. This movie, Lean on Me. Have you seen that movie? With Morgan Freeman, we've all seen it, right? And there's that part in that movie where the fire inspector tries to come in, and after he leaves or whatever, after Morgan Freeman out, right? He says, "You're like, can't do." Somebody says, "No, you can't do that." He says, "I can, and I did." And you know where he's saying it from now? On the other side of that door. See, that's what we gotta do. You can't change the feeling, but you can change how you what they're allowed to do. Okay, right? So stop that.
Okay, so for the sake of that level of semantics, then I can agree that we will therefore legislate that they could be prejudiced, they could be racist all they want, but once they act upon that emotion, then we have the power to incarcerate them for a great deal of time, take every last asset that they have, in fact, come up in so much litigation that their grandchildren are going to need attorneys.
So now we agree on that. I'm watching this is live, and it's killing me. You got, it says PBS is airing this live right now on Facebook. Congressional Democrats are introducing a bill to limit police immunity and excessive force. So
didn't we say that last week?
So here's the thing. To me, these are more flowers. This is more candy. They didn't know. So here's where I'm saying to you. So Fish Fry Clyburn and Schiff are standing there together, and they both have kente cloth, scar, whatever you call them, draped over their lapels of their suits, jackets. Come on, guys. Like, literally, I am repulsed by that. And anybody who isn't, I gotta ask, what are you doing? So they now, because they see the riots, because here's where I'm looking at this, or how I'm looking at it. They know that they're kicking you in the ass. They know that they got their boot in your neck. And until you do something, they're not gonna do anything. Right? So they said, hey, listen, we got our boot in their neck. They ain't saying nothing. Let's push it down a little harder. Let's apply a little more pressure. Ooh, they still didn't say anything. Let's keep going. Then they hit a nerve. Right? They hit a nerve the other day. And when they hit the nerve, we jumped. And now what they're doing is calming it all down. But they know, they already knew this. So for them to say, oh, right now, all of a sudden, we feel the need, Fish Fry Clyburn says, we feel the need to introduce a bill to limit police immunity and excessive force.
See, now here's the thing, and this usually is what their argument is. We couldn't have done it until now. Sometimes the climate has to be a certain way before they have to introduce a bill and get it passed. Because what would have happened if this would have been 2 months ago, or 3 months, 4 months ago in November, right? When there wasn't any hot climate for it, right? They couldn't have gotten.
But here's the issue,
and
right?
You need those white.
No, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying in theory, and maybe it is practical. But I don't want. But wait a minute. I don't want politicians who are licking the tip of their finger, checking to see which way the wind is blowing. I want you to have courage to speak when it's not popular, not when it is popular. Because by the time you begin to speak, a man has already died. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So now, because of your cowardice, right, that man died. If you had the courage to do it earlier, maybe he'd be alive. So I can't buy that. I can't buy well, you know what? We got to wait until, that's not what you're elected to lead, not lead from behind. And what you just pointed out, Farrakhan, the way you laid it out, was somebody who's leading from behind. So saying to everybody else, you all go ahead out there. You go ahead, and then when enough of you get slaughtered, then we'll come behind you and we'll try to enact some legislation. No, I need you.
Eric, I agree with you on that point, but I have to say that Farrakhan was absolutely correct.
Oh no, I'm not saying that. I agree with why they do it. I'm saying it's wrong. I'm saying that the reason. I'm saying that
there's a cure for it though, right? And it's not even about the voting. What it is we have to, as the people, get active. See, again, and you say this, right? You know that you don't want to you don't want to be a leader, and the people aren't doing it. Like, we have to do something too. See, what happens is they thought Clive Herman and all of them probably could have done this a year ago if black folks had been out in the street a year ago before the death. Because we knew about it, right? We knew about the problems. That's all they're saying now. So if we knew, but we ourselves weren't doing anything, we didn't take a stance. So we can't ask Clyburn to take a stance that we wasn't taking.
There you go.
We elected him, right? See, right? And this is what you say on the show, right? That we can't do that. Those that will let that won't let you live will make you die or something.
Oh,
however you say
what my father said.
But that's right. So that's what it is, right? You can't ask Clyburn to go out there and be fighting while we're still at home looking at Love and Hip Hop.
Why?
Because you can't ask him. You can't ask him to go out there and fight, and you're not going to have his back.
Why? Wait a minute. Why? Wait a minute. See. You know what? See, and this is where. So I'm going to say this. I understand why they don't go out and fight when you don't have their back, but they should.
Of course they should.
Right. So I understand why they don't, but they should. And so I'm going to be critical because of what they should be doing. Even though I understand why they do what they do. I'm critical because I'm not going to give them a pass and say, well, not enough people are out there protesting. So you got this congressman or woman making $200,000 a year on taxpayers' backs, right? Earning what? 3 times more, 4 times more than, maybe 8 times more than what the average American makes. And they're sitting there saying, well, I'm not going to move till you move. I'm not going to do anything till you do it. I'm not going to speak up unless you all speak up. I'm not going to, no, then don't run. Don't run. We should kick them out because they're cowards. So, anyway. What else? Diane sent me.
Here is one thing that happened. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the 90s, when Philadelphia had a white police chief named Timoney, who was from New York, they brought him in to clean up the corruption because Philadelphia corruption under the former police chief Frank Rizzo, who became mayor, was so corrupt that during the period of the 60s, that not only did they gut the Black Panther Party, but they actually prosecuted, arrested, and gave years of prison time for anybody wearing a leather jacket and a black tan. So that's been ingrained. That disease has been in Philadelphia's DNA for a long time. Tiffany came in and started to clean it up and found out that those police officers who were ingrained in that mindset of prejudice, racial, and king cop superiority, who wouldn't mind kicking you behind, knocking your teeth out with a flashlight, he fired them. They ended up, the union had so much power because the union backed and financed politicians that they could not change it. They fired people, and then 6 months later, they had to rehire them. It took 4 different police chiefs to continue on with the same prosecution of the same people to finally eradicate that. Sometimes things are not going to be instant and overnight. They are not going to be a revolution and things change overnight. Sometimes it's an evolution, and it's going to take us some time. But what we have to do is be consistent.
Yeah, we're out of time. Listen, what you think about, here's a headline. It says, as states reopen, tensions flare between, and I can see this too, tensions flare between the rule followers and the rule breakers, right? So these states are opening up, and there's there are guidelines, right, around them: 6 feet distancing, wear your mask. In some places, they want you to wear gloves. But because we're in America and you can't legislate stupid, some people decide, I don't want to wear a mask. Or I'm going to wear my mask, but I wear it below my nostrils. Or I wear my mask and I'm going to wear it on my chin, right? Or I'll have a mask, I'll put it in my pocket. Or, you know what? I'm not going to stay 6 feet. If you don't like it, you should move. Oh, that store says only 5 people allowed in there. I'm the 6th person, so what the hell, right? So what do you think? Because I know I've experienced some of these things. I told you, a woman who yelled at me in the Walgreens because I didn't realize there was an arrow on the floor that, you know, some aisles you go this way and the other aisles you go the opposite direction. And I didn't know that had been a new rule. So I was just, you know, walking, looking at stuff on the shelves to get. And she literally yelled at me, pointed down at the arrow. And ever since then, when I go into Walgreens, I pay attention to the arrow. But I'm a rule follower. I'm not a rule breaker. But for the person who says, what the hell, I got my mask on, I don't need to follow the arrow, and that person is a staunch rule follower, don't you think there are going to be a lot more confrontations as these states open up?
Well, let's see. There has not been a day where I haven't ran into that confrontation. I mean, a day. Is this a fact of one, the rule following? And there's a difference in terms of confronting people. There is the confrontation of giving them information and understanding of the procedures in which this woman kindly did to you and you adhered. And then there's a confrontation of someone just being a rebel, saying, fuck you and your life. What I want is more important.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it is that, right? But now, because I am a kind and gentle soul, her yelling at me, because she yelled at me, and it startled me. But yes, because I'm a rule follower, once I understood, the rules, I then understood her level of concern for herself, right? So it wasn't about me. Like at first when she yelled, I was like, who the hell are you yelling at? Like in my head, I didn't say it to her, but at first I'm like, why are you yelling at me? And then I started getting in my feelings about her yelling at me. And then she pointed down at the sign, and then I had to get out of my own way, right? And make it not about me once I recognized it. But everybody doesn't do that, right? Because what the tendency is to still make it about you. Well, you didn't have to yell at me. Well, but it's kind of like the person in a car that runs a light or that blows a stop sign, and then you blow your horn at them, and then they throw their finger at you. And you're trying to say, wait a minute, but you just put my life in jeopardy, right? But they couldn't get out of their own way to acknowledge that and to apologize. And so I think because, back to what Dr. Wright said when he was on the show, he said, what? We're individualistic. We're not communal by nature, right? And thinking. And so because of that, it's all about me all the time. And I fear that, between the rule breakers and the rule followers, that you're going to have confrontations, and then they're not going to be pretty. You're going to have somebody, walking up on the wrong person without a mask on, and it's going to be ugly. So I just suggest that folks, everybody knows now. And if you don't know now that you should be wearing a mask, like if you didn't hear that now or read it now from somewhere, or at least see all the other people. So even if you don't read, you know what I'm saying?
With all of this going on, the messaging is still so confusing. Even
is it really?
I was seeing all these articles about how the numbers were much lower than expected and so forth. But then I was doing the math myself, and I'm like, they're
saying we're at almost 2 million people in America confirmed infected, and we're at 110,000 or so deaths. And I'm like, so at that percentage rate, I can't say that the percentage rate is exactly what they told me it would be, right? They said that the mortality rate was going to be about 5% of people that get infected, right? And that's where it is, and that's huge. That's huge, right? As opposed, but people keep saying, oh, it's not as bad as the flu. I don't know where all these goofy numbers are coming from, but I'm just going by like what I saw last night, right? I saw 109,000 deaths, 1.9 million positive cases. If that's the case, we're at 5%, right? That's huge. When you consider the flu is only at about 0.3% for mortality rate, right? So I don't know. Again, we need leadership. We need leadership from the highest part of the government to the lowest, and we still don't get it. And that's what keeps this confusion between people, and it's also what's going to keep the battle between people. It's what keeps the race battle going. Let's be clear. All that we talk about every day on this show is based because there is no true leadership in the United States of America. There is nobody to stand and say, hey, here's a path, and we all need to take it. See, we got a mayor, a president who's speaking to one specific group of people that I want to make America great. And he presents that dialogue in a manner for them, right? He doesn't say, hey, America, I want to make America great again for all of us. And this is how we do it going forward. See, we don't have leadership. And that's what people in this country want. It's been a long time since we've had great leaders in this country, or a cause that we could all get behind. Right? It didn't matter if he was black, green, or purple. Right? Probably was World War II. Right? The last cause that America truly got behind. Right? And it didn't matter if he was black or white. Right? World War I or World War II. World War II came after it, so you got to say World War II.
No, I think Gulf War I.
Gulf. I don't know if we all got behind the Gulf War.
No, we just didn't get behind Gulf War II. We were behind Gulf War I because of one, it was a short time period. Two, it was because of the attack on the World Trade Center. And three, because we were going after the quote-unquote weapons of mass destruction and the terrorists that actually attacked us on American soil. So we were unilateral in that. We were not in Gulf.
Okay, I won't argue with you. I'll take it. But I know that at this point, that's what I personally, Americans look for, and it's what Americans want. We don't get leadership, right? And without it, right, this is what you have. Like I said, you can go look on, pick any free news station, right? Well, if you pick CNN, don't pick MSNBC, right? And pick 3 different news suppliers, and you will get 3 different understanding of this situation, of any situation, right? Mm-hmm. It's just how it goes. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer for it, but I do know what the problem is. And the problem is lack of leadership.
True.
And maybe that means the answer is get leadership, but I don't know where that leadership's going to come from.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
If we're going to talk about the leadership of Make America Great Again, that translates to us as Make America White Again. Because we can see that under his tenure, it has done nothing but negatively affect people of color.
But the funny thing to that is, if he was a brighter man, he could have presented Make America Great Again, even for black. He could have. There's some of the statistics that we use when we say before segregation or desegregation, that black America was making strides. If he was smart, he could have shown us that he said, we'll get rid of the racism and the bias. Right? He could have stood on that and then said, but if we make America great again, there's a way for black people to start buying more housing. There's a way for black people to start gaining more. But he didn't do that. That's like
Exactly. The lack of leadership in saying "Make America Great" means that you are making all Americans great. You are eliminating.
You know what? I can never see, guys. But I can never see. But I can't even. I can't even stomach listening to how to rationalize "Make America Great Again." Like when you just look at the history.
Can you actually stomach me giving 30 more seconds of it?
No, I can't because it's never been great. It's never been great ever. 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 It's never been great. It has always been brutal. It has always been murderous. It has always been oppressive. Always. Always. There's never been a time in
class of people.
What?
And that's what it's always been that way for a certain class of people. That's what we were saying, Eric.
Right. So I can't have the conversation about.
But right? When you say that, right, that's like saying black people have never enjoyed at some point in time living in America. There have been plenty of times in America where black people felt great. They felt like they were doing something. They felt like they was getting something, right? You can't tell me that America wasn't feeling great to people recently freed of slavery or people.
No, that's not what I'm saying. But what
look at those old pictures, right? You ever look at those old pictures of black folks, and we looking damn good. The woman's got nice outfits on and furs, and I'm not talking the 70s. I'm talking like those 1930 and 40 pictures when we thought we were getting a piece of the action. So there have been times for
right, but no. So here, I'll give you this example. But here is the example I'll give you. Here is the example I'll give you. Miles Davis, as great as he thought things were in America for him, when he got knocked upside his head, standing underneath the marquee that had his name on it, he realized that America was the same America I'm talking about now. So yes, we could look at pictures of him and we could see him smiling and all those things. And yes, those are the pictures you're talking about. But America, the heart and soul of America, has never been great. Never. Ever. Ever. And I think that...
I don't think America was ever great for black people. I mean, I think that might be...
Right, and so
America was great. If there was a time when we thought when we felt better about our community.
Yes, I'm not trying to strain gnats here, and I agree with that. So I'm not trying to strain gnats. I'm simply saying that when you use that term, when you try to convince people that, hey, make it great again, so then I go and say, okay, well then you show me when it was great. Show me when it was great. Give me a marker of when America was great.
Now here's anecdotal, and I think this is where the problem is, right? There are going to be some black people that tell you that the mid to 70s to mid 80s was a great time in Detroit for black folks. You know what I'm saying? They're going to say that, man, you could go to a factory, you could get work in ASAP at any of the even in North. How about when you listen to people in North talk about, I guess it was late 60s or 70s, and they was like, man, you could leave one job and walk across the street and get another job at another factory. That was a great time for them.
Wait a minute. So now, wait a minute.
That's what they're going to
got you. I was listening today to another show, and they were talking about in the 70s, the racial wealth gap being the same or being worse now, or being worse now than in the 70s, or maybe equal to in the 70s. That the income gap between blacks and whites, right? That it was worse, right? Did they say it was worse now or worse then?
It's worse. It's worse now. But here's the thing: the income gap and the wealth gap of America is worse now. So the 1% today is like 5 times wealthier than the 1% what the 1% was of 1980. Okay, and so the gap it's larger for everybody, and it's just because we're always on the bottom. It always is.
Right.
Okay.
So, but the point,
if you look at the wealthiest people in America,
right. So the point,
executive wise, right? Now, they said by executive compensation, right? In 1980, the CEO of the company made maybe 3 or 4 times, the crewman worker, right? The basic worker. The CEO might have made 3 or 4 times greater than what that guy made. But today, the CEO of a corporation makes 100 times greater, right? 50 times greater. You look at the CEO of ABC getting, $20 million,
in a year, right? Or of major corporations, like $600,000-$700,000 senior executive of companies, and yet their standard worker is making $15 an hour.
But if we're going to actually, Eric, if we're talking about a time period where America was great for both colors, let's look at the the construction area during 1863 to 1872 is where blacks actually started getting into a level of prominence. We had 9 millionaires that were black. We also had 14 politicians, and then after that post-construction, where the election came and they eliminated the actual troops from the Insurrection Act of keeping the South or leveling the playing field in the South, and then that post-construction act by the Southern general and all those yahoos and voter intimidation and taking over and lynching black people of prominence who had prosperity and taking and lynching them and taking their property is where the decline actually started. And we've been struggling ever since that point.
So wait a minute.
But hey, Vince, you can't say the great. If you can count the amount of millionaires we had on one hand, on two hands, it wasn't great for America.
Wait a minute.
Really?
Vincent,
Well,
Vincent,
slaves to millionaires, that was pretty goddamn great for them.
Vincent, so
Yes.
here's what I want to ask you, right?
Yes.
So are you suggesting that even those who became millionaires, and I credit them tremendously, that they didn't have racial hurdles and other issues to deal with that their white counterparts didn't have to deal with?
Wait.
Stay with what I'm saying. Stay with
this
what.
is how I can prove it to you, Joe Vic. Hey, Eric, let me take this. Find me the families of those non-millionaires. Let's see where their families are. You understand? If you want to, because if I go and show you the families of 9 millionaires that were white from that same era that you're talking about, I guarantee you their families still got it or 10 times more.
So what I'm saying is, yes.
Not all of them. There are a few white families who
Right.
were millionaires back then
Right.
that are,
Right.
in fact...
So I don't want to have the discussion just to... So listen, wait. So this is where it devolves...
But you understand what I'm saying?
All right, but this is...
You understand that, but that happens in both races.
Vincent,
So
but this
we
is...
cannot say that. We cannot say that those 9 millionaires,
Vincent,
remain millionaires.
but this...
yes,
Vincent, this is where the conversation devolves because we're trying to be right. And what I'm simply saying is this, right? That those millionaires, God bless them, but there's certain facts, right? That the culture of America that existed then, the racist culture of America, was not gone. And those folks, if you look at the race they had to run to become millionaires versus the race that their white counterparts had to run to become millionaires, America was not great to them. They overcame extraordinary obstacles that were not presented to their counterparts. So how do you say that culture that they became millionaires? Yes, they did. But that culture that was pushed by America was not great. What was great about it?
well, okay, and thank you for bringing that point up. Here is the actual point that was great for them, because...
No, America, not them.
Eric, could you
America.
just zip it up and let me get 30 seconds of verbiage out to answer your question? The simple thing was this. They overcame slavery and having nothing with no help to make millions of dollars. They sat up there and petitioned and became politicians to actually give us a level of guarding, a level of security and legislation that would keep the foot off our necks. They sat up there and progressed and grown, and they had virtually nothing. And right now we've got a lot more than what they had, and we're not doing nothing with it.
But you didn't answer the question at all. But thanks for trying. Thanks for trying.
Great.
That's like me saying I dropped.
But Eric, if you're saying that they have not experienced racism, that's, Eric, I'm not saying that they have not.
Don't yell, Vincent.
I'm
Vincent,
breathing.
you're screaming.
I'm not yelling. I'm not saying that they have not experienced racism, prejudice, and obstacles.
No.
What I'm saying is that they have experienced
So
They've experienced a lot more than what we have.
Let me ask you 3 questions, right? Where is the family of Frederick Douglass? Where is what? The W.E. The family of Frederick Douglass. Where is the family of E.B. Du Bois? I know the of George Washington. But the other city is none of what we would consider having attained great of success. None of it manifested into generational success for their families.
What are you talking about? I know the Douglas family. We got the same beach house in Annapolis, Maryland. I mean, that family has been successful.
Don't be another Umar Johnson on, okay? But okay. So you're saying that his family is doing well based off of their legacy?
I'm saying that I'm saying that family has consistently had some level of progression. And it has some level of setbacks.
Okay. See, I don't want to belabor it because I'm not.
Family, I do know.
No, but I think that Farrakhan's point was made that generational wealth, that they're not living from generational wealth the same way that their white counterparts are. And so to have this conversation, even for 5 minutes, to try to explain how that statement is not true, concerns me. America has never been, like literally, has never been great. You know what it's like? It's like me driving up Bloomfield Avenue through Glen Ridge and not being stopped and saying, oh, Glen Ridge is great. No, I just haven't been stopped yet, right? Asterisk, yet, right? But if I go look at their logs, I'll see all of the black folks who are in the court, in traffic court, every day, right? In Bloomfield, you go to the area. Now, I live in Bloomfield. I live near the East Orange-Newark border. I've not been stopped since I've lived here. However, if you go look at the statistics in Bloomfield, you'll see a disproportionate number of stops by cops in the area. So just because I didn't get stopped, I can't have a conversation and say Bloomfield is great. No, it's not. Look at the statistics. And I'm saying if you look at those statistics, yes, you will have 9 millionaires. I'm saying let's look at the other stuff. And the other stuff will clearly show you the ugliness of America. And so for us to be distracted in such a way that we look at those 9 and say, hey, listen, it was great. It's problematic for me.
But we cannot minimize the simple fact of the accomplishment of the
I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm doing. No, nobody was doing that.
What I am saying is this. They operated and moved and progressed without legislation that kept the knees off their necks. Once that legislation moved, that protection left them, we started to decline. That's what I'm saying. And that's what we need to get back to. Let's get back to the simple fact that, you know what, the laws in America have now, since post-construction slavery, has not been working in our favor. And
wait a minute. But to your point, Vince, wait a minute. But Vincent, to your point, and then I'll move on. But to your point, right, if you've got all these policies in place, you've got black billionaires now. Right? You've got black billionaires. So one could argue, like you're arguing, well, they worked through these obstacles, they overcame these obstacles, they became billionaires or millionaires or whatever. I'm saying, but in this climate right now, the reason people are out in the street marching, burning shit down is because America's not great. Even though you have these black millionaires and billionaires. America's not great. Not great. So I'm not going to be distracted.
If we're going to look at that actual quote of great, then that is another thing is going to...
Right, but listen, I don't want to go back and forth. But what I don't want to do is go back and forth and argue. Like, I don't want to do that. It's not... Look, if you want to believe it's great, go ahead and believe it's great. I don't believe it's great. I don't believe it's ever been great. That's me.
Well, I gotta go with Eric on that one. Great might be the wrong terminology for black people. Well, what I was saying is that it was good, but to say America has ever been great for black America is a huge stretch.
What I'm saying, the term great for black America depends on the black American. bottom line. Great is the interpretation of the individual.
Right. And what I don't disagree. Look, I don't look. I'm not look. Listen, I don't disagree with you. No. Yes. No. Yes. I don't. No. Yes. I don't disagree with you. I'm gonna say that it's the interpretation of people like Candace Owens, right? So I look at that and I question it, right? On to Oprah Winfrey. She's having a 2-day town hall. I don't know if you saw this, to discuss racism in America. I just had to laugh. Like, I'm saying to myself, are you serious? So you got a whole channel, own network. Why aren't we discussing it every minute of every day? To me, it was like Black History Month, right? Where you say, you know what? We're going to give, like we recognize there's a problem. And the reason you know there's a problem is because you have to take a month and actually call it Black History Month. Now you water it down, but you recognize that there was a problem. And I'm saying, so if you realize this thing to be a problem, Oprah, and you've made your billions, right, in media, why not use that platform to every day talk about race in America? Every day.
We already spoke on that, right? We already spoke on there comes an opportunity where you can versus when you can't. See, today, she will get maximum viewership from that. 2, 3, 4 months ago, she wouldn't have gotten. That's why she couldn't. But what we've learned, right, and we talked about this back in Black History Month, that every Sunday of Black History Month, white America and white media put something against Black history teachings. There was in the first month of the year, right, February, we had the Super Bowl, we had the All-Star Game, we had one of the movie things like the Oscars or the Golden Globe. The Oscars, right? You know, right. So that's 3 of the 4 Sundays in the month of February, right there. That's why we don't have the attention span as a community of people to persist at anything. So they hijacked everything. See, because remember, I made the point back then that it used to be the last, with the exception of one other Super Bowl, all Super Bowls took place the last week of January for 20-something years, right? Every Oscars took place in the Oscars took place in March of every year. But they realized that Black people would not raise up and were so short-sighted that they could take the month of February, take the T-Day, Sunday, that was always when there was always the big premiere of whatever PBS was going to do or whatever any other channel was going to do. They always pick their Sunday, right? So now they hijacked that. And we let them.
Yeah.
We let them. So Oprah is doing, she's a business, right? So she has to do what makes business. Right now, she can have a 2-day town hall for racism in America. Right? She's not going to have it for equality in America. She's not going to have it for economic parity. I promise you that. There'll be about 10 minutes on each day spent on that, of however many hours long the scope, her town hall book. Right? They're not going to do that, which is really the key for me. Right? Until we figure out how to handle the money, nothing else really matters. Right? And Oprah understands that. And Oprah, that's the problem. We are very, very short-sighted, and we let ourselves get hijacked. Yes, we have. Never forget what I just said. Like I said, I looked it up. I looked up the last 20-something Super Bowls, all which were conducted in January except for one until this year. Right? I looked up the history. It went all the way back to 1940-something for where it was in January. Right? So, again, it's us as Black people. We just don't do it.
Yeah.
Right? We have to stand on our square. We don't do that. My father used to call it, like when it I won't say why he used to say it, but it's essentially we have round feet.
Black America has round feet. And what that means is we roll any way you push us.
I like that. I like that.
No, that was my father saying, right? And I was just saying, women, don't get mad at me, but that's what my father was talking about. He's like, yo, that dog got real round feet. Right? It took me a minute to realize what the hell he was saying. I actually had to ask, and my sister was the one that actually said, "No, admit she roll any way you push her."
Wow.
That's what he was saying.
I like
right?
that.
You know, and that's the truth, right? Black America's got round feet. Push us to the left, we roll to the left. Push us to the right, we roll to the right. We don't stand on our square. You know, we got to learn to do that. But I'm going to sit back and listen. I got to take care of something now. I got an appointment.
All right, brother.
So, great to talk to y'all today.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great.
So, listen,
But-
Vincent, we
and
got...
also,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
the other thing about Oprah and the timing in actually doing it is that now she's at the point in her financial career and her business that the pushback from white people will not cause a huge devastation or effect to her.
Mm.
The same thing with Charlemagne. The same thing with a lot of other black millionaires. Now is the perfect time for them to stand up.
Yeah.
Now is the perfect time for them to make their voices be heard. Serena Williams just spoke yesterday, and you have never heard a word from her about the racial struggle that she went through in becoming a tennis champion.
Oh, that's not true.
Yeah.
She's talked about it before.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, they must have really not kept that on a lot of media outlets. But they were saying it loud and clear yesterday.
Yeah.
And the only reason they said that is because her husband said that he was going to step down from his board position of the company he started to actually bring in a black person to start leveling the playing field.
Well, you know, it's a great idea, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I
It's
I
a start.
appreciate his level
Some
of
people say it's a
altruism.
start, right? I don't, you know, when I hear those
It's a
kinds of
start.
things, man, I just say, so it literally took this guy getting the breath choked out of him by having this knee in his neck for her husband to realize that maybe he should step down from the company he started, bring a black person in. I don't know. Anyway, Diane sent me the note to remind me on July 10th, and Diane, I'll make the artwork so that I can remind the listeners and viewers. We're going to be discussing the book When Affirmative Action Was White. Subtitle, an untold history of racial inequality in 20th century America. Right? And the book is by Ira Katznelson. And we're going to be discussing it. So I got to get to reading. I've been doing a lot of baking, man. I got to get to reading. Hey, Vincent, did you see me in the kitchen yesterday, man?
Yeah,
baby. I just gave I gave people a glance of the kitchen yesterday, and then I was gonna come back and show them, you know, how we package it up, and you know, I'll do something more elaborate at some point so that people can, you know, kind of get a behind the scenes of what goes on. But that is that's my other life, man. You know, and today I want to let you guys know we're going to be at the farmer's market. That's why I was doing all that baking yesterday. We baked, oh my gosh, I baked 400 pieces of, you know, well, you know, I don't bake them individually, but I baked enough for 400 individual containers because we sold so much last week and we ran out that we fully expect to run out again. So come get it. Come and get it. I appreciate all the support from everybody. We're having a good time building this thing out. And then I got some other really great news, but I'm going to hold off on it for about another 2 weeks. And, you know, I'm trying to hold off, Vince. And you may have to come over here and put your hand over my mouth to keep me from talking about it. You know what it is, but they don't. And I'll share that news with them in due time. You like the way I tease them, Vince?
I'm sorry, but that would not be the proper social distancing that we need.
Oh, right. Well, no. I could put my mask on, and you could. Yeah, I guess. I guess you couldn't do it. Anyway, I think we
But
got
I could hire Amina to, work in my proxy.
Oh. Well, she spends most of the time putting her hand over my mouth by herself, so she don't need you to tell.
Well, if Amina is like my wife, that is a full-time job.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, and I got after I leave the farmers market today. So the farmers market is in Maplewood on Springfield Avenue. There is actually an address for it's in like a parking lot area, but there's an actual address for those who want to go. Somebody inboxed me and just asked where it is. So if you put in your GPS, it's 1848 Springfield Avenue in Maplewood, New Jersey. Come and support not just us, but there are a bunch of other small business owners. Actually, a couple bigger ones too, right? Go ahead.
By the way, I need to make an announcement. June 6th, I had gotten a lot of people who were congratulating me and wishing me happy birthday. And I had to tell them all that, June 6th was not my birthday. And so what I want to say is this. Thank you all for the well wishes, but my birthday is in September. What I have experienced is that running for office, there were a great deal of fake Facebook and media posts.
So when I went on that page with it, because it comes up and it says, "Hey, wish these people happy birthday." That wasn't your page. That was somebody. That was a page that was created.
Correct.
Wow.
Someone else made that up. In fact, there were a whole lot of negative and untrue fake media posts and campaigns about me. One in which it took me 3 hours to discuss with my own brother that none of that stuff was true about me.
All right. Well, then you gave, hey Vincent, that gift that I send it back. Hey Vincent,
See what had happened was
it's a Rolex watch. Send it back, Vincent.
Well, see what had happened was
I'll give it back. I'll give it to you in September, but send it back. I need the money now.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just re-gift it to you.
Well, listen, guys. After I leave the farmers market, I'm going to Krispy Kreme because they have a new donut.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. They have a Krispy Kreme just dropped 2 Snickers donuts with roasted peanuts and nougat pieces. I know. I'm just gonna get one.
All right. I'm going to enjoy every next hour and a half to work all those calories off.
Hey, listen, man. I love Krispy Kreme.
Oh,
The only donut I like better than Krispy Kreme, it's called Voodoo Donuts. They have it in Seattle. They have it in Oregon. Yeah. And so whenever I'm visiting my daughter, when she comes to visit, she brings me Voodoo Donuts. So yeah, they are wonderful, man. But I told you, huh?
We stood out in Vegas at 3 in the morning, waiting for the first batch of Krispy Kremes to come out.
Yeah, man.
Oh,
Hey, Vincent, isn't it? It's sinful watching them pour that glaze over them, right, as they go across that conveyor belt, and then you just. I know, man. The calories are just piling on you just watching it happen.
I'm gaining 10 pounds just thinking about it.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. I would love nothing more than to see this whole thing culminate in real, transformative, sustainable change. But we know the forces that are on the other side of this that don't want to relinquish anything, which means we have to stay the course if we know what the course is. Thanks for tuning in. Vincent, have a blessed day, my brother. Hey, I like the way you always end the show. Go ahead. What do you say?
Be safe. Be blessed. Wash your hands. If it's God's will, then we'll be back tomorrow to talk to you again.
Take care.
Bye.